For years, the internet has been obsessed with the fight logs. We've seen the names, the dates, and the tail number of the Lolita Express. But in the late 2025, we learned a hard truth. The fight logs were just the table of contents. The real story was in the FBI files. Today, on the Value of Questions, we are exploring the gap between these two types of evidence. Why does a name on a fight log mean something different than a name in an FBI field note? And why was the government so much more protective of one than the other? The fight logs were essentially a travel diary. They showed us who was on the plane, but they didn't tell us what happened once the plane landed. For a long time, these logs were used as the ultimate list, but they were incomplete. Many flights weren't logged, and many passengers used aliases. The 2025 FBI release, however, contains the interviews with the people on those flights. It contains the why and the what, not just the when. If you were to analyze the two types of evidence, how would you contrast the legal weight of a name appearing on a flight ledger versus a name appearing in a confidential FBI interview file, and which would you find more damaging to a person's reputation? They were tracking phone calls, banking records, and off-the-record meetings at properties like the New York Mansion and the New Mexico Ranch. This is where the confusion lies. People are saying names in the 2025 dump and assuming they were on the list, but the FBI files are much broader. They include people who were being investigated as predators and people who were being investigated by Epstein for blackmail purposes. Based on the revelation that the FBI had information far beyond the fight logs for decades, what would you conclude about the government's responsibility to the public when they allow a partial truth like the logs to dominate the narrative while they hide the full context in their files? Because the public has been trained to look for the list. The release of 300,000 pages of FBI data has created a vacuum of confusion. It's easy to take a name for an FBI file and pretend that it's the same name on a fight log, but the value of the question is in the nuance. Is the data being released now meant to clarify the logs, or is it meant to make the logs look less significant by burying them in a mountain of unrelated FBI tips? How would you predict the evolution of public justice if you realize that future truths will always be delivered in massive data dumps that require you to distinguish between a simple travel record and a criminal investigation file? The fight logs were the beginning. The FBI files are the deep dive. To understand the Epstein case, you have to be willing to look at past the list of names and look into the records of actions. I want to hear from you. Do you think the fight logs were the whole story until this 2025 release? How do you feel now that you know how much more the FBI was actually holding? Join the conversation in the comments below. Let's keep asking the questions that matter. Thanks for watching.